welcome back.
This is Kareem,
And this is Travis.
and we're on One Hit High Points here. We're here to discuss basically something still in line with the last few episode topics, which was about Palestine and Gaza, the West Bank, and so on. I think we'd be in a delusional state if we were just to be talking about topics that we have in the past where we would just try to relate certain perspectives and personal experiences with whatever the subject matter was. But I think that we're witnessing a very just universal shift where our eyes and ears and attention has been focused on what's going on overseas as well as what is happening within our own government here in the US. So I think it would be very irresponsible for us to not be talking about things that are really, really important, despite people trying to make them political, not political, whatever you want to say. These are things that need to be discussed, and I would never feel okay looking back at my life if I stayed silent on a platform that I'm trying to create with you in real time. You may have your Instagram, you may have your social media accounts, you may protest in person, you may try to educate people and have conversations, but when it really matters and I'm trying to make this platform something so that I can connect with people in a multitude of ways and have open dialogue, I need to continue talking about what's happening overseas. It affects everyone, and this is so important. So Travis and I have started to discuss about how we're going to incorporate more videos, articles. We're going to talk about those articles and videos, break them down, give perspectives on them, and maybe down the road we'll be able to take this podcast more into open discussions out in the streets in public. Like I can be there with a mic and asking people in real time what they think or what they feel about what's going on in the world, and it all starts somewhere, but this is something new. So today I want to talk about Al Shifa Hospital, specifically because Al Shifa Hospital, back when October 7th first occurred, very early on in the war, if you want to call it that, the genocide, Al Shifa Hospital was bombed by Israel, and we had multiple reports on the ground that confirmed it was Israeli forces that had bombed. But due to the nature of how controversial that may have seemed at the time on mainstream media, everything was about misreporting and allowing the reporters to essentially run with these stories that it was a Hamas rocket that misfired and exploded. It was a jihadists that happened to shoot that rocket from God knows where, and that they had heard some footage over the phone that it was someone on the phone saying, yeah, yes, we did this, but it was not confirmed that it was anyone that was Palestinian or a jihadist or whatever the hell propaganda terms they want to use. It was confirmed that it was Israel. Israel then had to come out and then admit that, oh, it was an accident, we didn't mean to do this, it was an accident, it was misfire, blah blah blah. Remember how controversial that was in early October? Like, do you remember how that headline or those headlines were everywhere about Al Shifa hospital being bombed? Like, how could they? Now we've bombed every hospital in Gaza, not once, not twice, but countless times, killing innocent civilians. Like,
Not even hospitals, but even like
everything,
like aid tents. Like it's wild.
But to kind of bring this into the today, we forget about the crazy tragedies that have occurred overall in the over a year now that it's been. It's October 14th as of now, and we're looking at what's happening in real time, and we're seeing that we have, for the most part, I'm not saying like me or people that are really on this issue, but we're seeing like the general people who may know or have an understanding of what's going on are kind of not necessarily as shocked by these things. I think we have kind of felt this wave of trauma that's had a lot of people see people burning alive in these tents outside of the hospital, still hooked up to IVs. Some may feel that horror. Some people may look at it and feel nothing but disgust and heartbreak and anger. And others may look at it and say, what can I do? This is the reality. And of course, we have those who turn their blinders on and they refuse to even see that because they don't care, right? Because it doesn't affect them, right? So we're looking now at Al Shifa Hospital here in a video clip that we have that we wanted to share, and I think we should watch it and then we can talk about it.
Okay.
Okay, so we're just learning how to kind of navigate through a lot of this
buttons
and just
gizmos and gadgets.
yes, all that stuff that you are absolutely amazing at, and I appreciate everything that you're able to do because I'm not a computer or technical person whatsoever. That was a short little video clip. It was definitely more viewer friendly because the current footage we have circulating all over through the internet, social media, whatever, is of horrific scenes that can only be seen in maybe like not even in movies. Like I don't think there's anything as horrific as seeing people burn alive, whether they're women, children, men, because we often ignore men as being people, human beings that also can be innocent and are innocent. And we're seeing such moral deprivation with the actions that the U.S. funds, the IOF, how they're just enacting the most vicious evils as their, I would say, the fall or the start of the fall of their empire has begun. And I think we've seen in all these ancient civilizations throughout all of recorded history, whenever an empire is about to fall, they become the most violent and they reach for any bit of power they can as they're about to, essentially fall. This video clip in particular I wanted to show was just kind of more of a realization to those who maybe are kind of loosely following us or maybe not, that what we're seeing is essentially Armageddon that has befallen the Palestinian people, especially in Gaza, soon to be the West Bank if this continues, because it's very clear what their goals are to annex the West Bank. And of course, if Trump wins, he's promised to annex the West Bank after he's gotten paid $100 million to do so if he wins. So I wanted to show that video because I wanted for people to maybe feel something in a way that could be digested versus showing you something pretty graphic. One, maybe obviously getting us some type of strike on the account because I don't know what we can show and cannot show. But also, as well as this is something that, again, is more digestible to witness or view or watch. So how do you feel? This is something that I've also wanted to kind of explain. I'm of Palestinian by blood. My father was born in Jerusalem. He was forcibly removed at gunpoint, his entire family, in 1967. My family all essentially came here after that, and my father and my family established their life. My mom's also an immigrant from Syria. So, I've basically been born into this world of always having to be really conscientious of what's happening overseas because my family's from there, my blood's from there. But I'm also a very proud American, and I understood what my parents sacrificed, and I have this pride of being an American because of the ability to have the freedoms I have, and I'm definitely grateful. And
it's very much about your heritage as well, so it becomes very personal.
But isn't heritage also unique to the individual's experience on this planet and this earth, right? I tend to avoid really validating the quality of a being in every aspect of life when it comes to a flag waving or a title above your head, but more about the experience you have as a person, how it shapes you to be, I guess, a morally refined individual. And I think that's how I've always lived my life. But because of the utter and complete evil that we're all witnessing, I think it's just my DNA feels activated. I have to speak, I have to be present, I have to be a person who's speaking about this because I have the luxuries and freedoms to a degree, right? Because we're seeing a lot of the facade pulled to do this. I'm able to have a roof over my head. I'm able to drink clean water and all these things, right? I can't feel, as someone who was born in the life that I was given, not feel guilty and disgusted upon belief about what's happening overseas. What a privilege for me to sit here and act like I can just turn it off, So for me, being that I have that backstory and I have that connection there, it affects me on levels that I can't even explain to people in words. But I feel like I can connect with people with my eyes and they would just know everything. But for you, I really want to pose this question to you. As someone who's only witnessed, has had an idea of what's been going on in the world, obviously you're watching as everyone else is, but to not be connected to that part of the world and to not necessarily have any ties to the world other than knowing me, how has it shaped your overall perspective on not only foreign policy and our government at large, but also how, we've essentially allowed this to happen
Mm-hmm.
for the longest time, and I want to know where's your head at about it? What are your thoughts?
So I've always questioned, like through I don't know over my adult life. Let's put it that way. I don't know how long. So, but I've always kind of questioned like the general narrative of like why is the United States like so heavily invested like in the region of Israel and Palestine and things like that. And I've always questioned it, and I never really supported it. Not necessarily from a religious standpoint or anything like that. It's just more of like why is there one country that we're just like dumping billions into, and I've always questioned it, but I never kind of understood why. But now kind of seeing things
You never
unravel.
understood why because you never further investigated, or you
I
just
never fully, yeah, because I didn't really have any ties to it. It's just kind of like it's always happened from my standpoint. It's just like okay, whatever. But that's the Midwest box that I lived in, and I think I've always kind of knew that that box was not necessarily wrong, but there's life outside of that box, and we had to go explore and understand really how the world is kind of ticking
which
or
you have in a
working,
lot of ways, in a
which I
lot of
have,
ways.
and that's kind of what I'm saying is that the box is not necessarily wrong. It's just kind of walled off. Essentially, is really what it occurred.
It's wrong once you maybe acknowledge it and,
Sure.
continue to live in that maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you know it and you continue to use it as a shield or protection, then sure, because then you're kind of not innocent in a way. You're kind of guilty by association in some rhyme or reason. So it's just more of like I always question things, and now I kind of like look at things, and it makes sense as far as the reason why. Like there's transactions going on, not just financial, but if there's financial transactions going on, that means someone else is getting something else. Like if we're giving weapons, what are they giving us in return? There's always a deal. And so in my mind is that deal has to be something sitting somewhere. I don't know. That's just more of just I've always questioned the antics of it, and I think now it's all of a sudden
Yeah, where are we
coming
at now?
fold.
Where are we at now? You would say.
Where are we at now? I think it's all unraveling.
But where are you as the individual? Because I would like
Oh,
to believe that you represent a large part of what American society is, which is that of maybe people who weren't as informed or maybe weren't as
yeah. I think both sides are wrong. The red and blue, the Republicans and the Democrats, both sides are completely wrong. They're both promoting war and genocide in some form or fashion, or just blatantly so, of just supporting things and wanting to send money. So it's there, you know. And I think that there's a giant political shift, and I think I'm a part of that political shift of disassociating from both parties and saying that I'm like yes, I'm voting more Jill Stein, but it's like I'm not necessarily saying I'm a part of the Green Party. It's the
right.
viable option as of today, where it could possibly bring some further political change for us, especially with the 5% rule, making sure the popular vote is
Do
at
people
least 5%.
understand this? I'll have because you can articulate better than I could for sure. Do you mind explaining to anyone who may be listening what exactly it means by this 5%?
Yeah. So from what I understand from a general election standpoint, is a party will be federally recognized as long as they have more than 5% of the popular vote. Meaning, so if an independent party, whether it's the Green Party, the Yellow Party, the Pink Party, whatever, because we're associated with colors apparently, like whatever party it is, if they get 5% of the popular vote, then they become federally recognized in the future election. So maybe not this year, but in 2028, there could be a third party. What that means is that they're guaranteed on election ballots. There's some federal funding that they kind of get associated to. There's it makes it easier for that party to become established.
And this is all, by the way, to the point of the bipartisan system that we're in now. We have people like Trump saying, "Don't worry, the next time." There won't be when I win. You don't have to ever worry about elections or voting again or whatever it may be. We have one that's blatantly evil, one smiles in your face and acts like they're not evil, but they're very obviously evil. And they're part of the same puppet system, right? So
they're both paid off, and they're both, regardless if it's from, foreign lobbyists or even they're paid off even from a corporate standpoint.
We hear so many people say, when you vote for the Independent Party, Green Party, whatever, what have you, you're automatically giving your vote to such and such. And I think we hear this rhetoric
And that
often
might be
happen.
and that might be a true statement in the grand scheme of
In
things.
swing states or states that are predominantly like if you're in New Jersey and you're a blue state no matter what, like we're in Jersey, right? Obviously, so like you're a blue state, we're a blue state.
Correct.
So when you think of the overall populace of New Jersey, we know that we're voting, at large for Kamala, the Democrats, right? But when you have enough people that have gotten the ball rolling to vote independent, to vote green or whatever, you are basically saying to your, politicians, your government, Congress, that we have lost faith in this bipartisan system that essentially binds us to this belief that we always have to vote for the lesser of two evils. And I think we've gotten to this place where I think for the most part, yes, generations upon generations may have called out a politician or president or whatever, and we've always understood that there's a level of evil that comes with the idea of being a politician because of hard decision making and having to vote for the greater good for some, but maybe not for everyone. So we always understood that there was murky gray lines there, But I think now, more than ever, we've never seen something so blatantly, undeniably evil when we have two of our candidates essentially kissing the ass of Israel to see who can, give them what they want more. And I think
they're after who gets the bigger paycheck.
They're after who gets more of the millions and who gets more of the power, for sure. But we're seeing this happen in a way that can't be denied, and I think that's what's causing so many people, especially with all of these natural disasters or occurrences here in the U.S. and the poverty is increased, like the inflation's increased, we have fentanyl use increasing, we have so much issues here back home in the U.S. that I think so many Americans who may not have had a specific opinion or a stake in the race, if you want to call it, about anything really happening in the world, now are actually shifting their frustrations at our own government because we're seeing that there isn't any unity really when it comes to the betterment of Americans, but suddenly there's this unanimous support for Israel in a way that has people scratching their heads like, wait, I thought they were an ally and that they're a client state, but now we appear to be the client state and we appear to be the state that's unequivocally supporting Israel even at our own demise. So now a lot of Americans have shifted a lot because of that, and I know that you're not in that camp because you've already been awoke to the things that have been occurring, but I definitely believe that you are kind of representative of the people that have maybe had a friend or a relationship of some sort to someone who maybe has been talking about it or has cared about it and has immediately shifted your gear into that because you've witnessed multiple reasons in front as to why it matters to you or should matter to you. For those people who are maybe not pro-Palestine but now are pissed off at our government for not helping Americans here, that's a different shift in itself. And then we have people that are maybe pro-Trump and pro-life and they're all supportive of Israel, but now they're sick of seeing children being murdered by Israel. They can't continue to see babies being burned alive. I witnessed on Twitter today, and I will always call it Twitter, X, whatever, bullshit, because X is it's just weird to use. Anyway, Twitter, I was on today, and I saw that there were so many pro-Trumpers saying, I'm supportive of Israel and their statehood, but at this point, I can't continue to see Netanyahu and that war criminal and his entire cabinet and government continue to just, kill children this way. This is just not something that I can continue to watch, and now I'm starting to see that they need to be stopped at all costs, So there's so many people from the start of this that are shifting over to the side essentially that wants a ceasefire or peace and whatever, and you have the diversities and differences between that unification. But I think that we're seeing the minority of supporters for Israel more and more, or less and less really. Too many people can't defend Israel. There's no defense for it anymore. And there's nothing that would indicate the right for a state to exist like this, and has, by the way, mind you, existed like this since its entirety. We're just now seeing it broadcasted in a way that maybe is giving people the reality in HD, and also because yes, there obviously is more casualties and more of a I guess blatant agenda to mass murder, genocide, annex, ethnically cleanse people. So yes, it obviously has increased, but this isn't anything new. Now that it is new, to people makes me feel like all this time, if the truth was ever reported, Israel would have never been allowed to continue. It would have never been allowed to continue the way it has had the truth been reported, and had the propaganda evil machine that operates throughout the Western world would have never allowed this to happen if they were reporting the truth. And the world at large, I would say, still knew the truth. Like, I still believe they knew the truth. It's just now the conversation's at the forefront.
It can't be hidden anymore.
You can't run away. And a little bit more I wanted to ask you too is just like, from your own personal experience of kind of, obviously we know that you work remotely and, all that stuff, but I know that you also have interactions with people and to some degree regarding this issue. And I think that you mentioned how there were people that never would have talked about anything like this with you, but have mentioned their horror about what has occurred overseas. Like on your trips, like I know you've spoken to people and they've said different things now about it, and how it's like just you really can't run away from the conversation, and there's that small talk exchange that has happened that you would have otherwise never really had.
Well, I think just more of, as I became more awakened to the issue at hand, I think it becomes easier to discuss, and my guess is that, I can relate with some individuals for more of, the cautiousness around the subject. So it's like, kind of, once you understand kind of that piece of it, you kind of know how to break the ice a little bit with the conversation, where you're not coming across combative.
Right.
You're not coming across, more, like on the offense or defensive or anything like that. You're coming more as in, let's just have a conversation about, regardless, because sometimes you don't even know what they believe in. So it's kind of a dicey situation on, like, but what I'm getting at is like more of like, know your audience, and as you kind of approach them and understand who the individual is, then you kind of have those conversations first, instead of just going directly into that convo.
Well, don't waste your breath with, and I'll say this to anybody, do not waste your time with Zionist bots. I'll say that first so that it's less offensive, because let's be real, there's Zionist bots and there are all these fake accounts that
Well, it's not even that.
seem legitimate, but they're literally not. Like, you can click on their profile and they're just not real people. They're just not. So there's that. And then I would also say, do not argue or debate with Zionists that are unequivocally supportive of Israel in the most radicalized way, because they're meant to just waste your time. They're meant to, in a lot of ways, radicalize you in the worst way, and to try to get you, I guess, matching their hatred, right? And I would say, just don't do that. I've had my fair share of going back and forth with Zionists that, essentially would bring out the worst in me, and I would say only bring out the worst in me because I would feel on the other end of the phone, I would feel stressed and I would feel, angry or whatever have you. And I just felt like, why am I wasting my effort on this individual, this troll, essentially, that is just doing they're doing exactly what was happening to me, which is to get me upset. So now I just more so share the truths that I can and have the conversations with open-minded people that want to hear. And on social media, same thing. I just don't really partake with the troll comments and the very clear, propagandized, parroted talking points by these Zionists and these bots. So that's one thing I will say. But more so in just general speech.
Yeah, I was more. I'm not saying from that side, but just more of knowing your personality and who you're actually talking to, and more of if you approach the subject of the genocide in Palestine, you should be prepared of what their reactions might be, especially if they're more of an aggressor, especially if you're having these conversations at, in public or work or school or wherever the case
work
is.
The one that I would probably just avoid the most,
it becomes sensitive, and sensitive, I use lightly, sensitive as in a work sensitivity, not necessarily at the subject. I don't know what I'm saying.
I know what you're trying to say. For the most part, it's like a time and place for certain, things like work or whatever. Me, personally, I'm capable and able and willing to talk about this no matter where I am. Because I'm at that point now where if people still want to make a genocide, let's just remind ourselves, a genocide in real time, right? If they want to make something like that political, then I find them to be repulsive and disgusting people that I don't even care to talk to. If they're going to politicize something as blatantly evil and wrong, as we all know it, all walks of life should know that mass murdering and death of any walk of life is wrong, especially when it's innocent civilians and it's there's no care in the world for who it is. It's just an indiscriminate killing in the most vicious, ways possible. I mean, we're dropping, not saying where, but the U.S. is funding a rogue apartheid state that is dropping, banned weapons are under international law, essentially, like white phosphorus on people that burns your skin and through your bone to the bone on impact, right? Like it just dissolves at your skin. And we've been dropping this not only on Gaza nonstop, but we've been dropping it in Lebanon. So I'm at that point now where I don't really care to appease to people's comfort or sensitivity. I'm more about like, poor you, I don't give a fuck. I care about what's happening overseas and having that conversation with willing people who are ready to have that conversation. If not, then I think you're wasting my time. I don't care what you're posting. I don't care what you're sharing. I don't care what you're talking about. If it is not related to what's happening overseas, you've honestly lost my attention. And if this is a continuous cycle I've witnessed with people where it doesn't seem to be a topic of conversation that they ever want to have, then I cut you off and I don't consider you a friend. I don't think you're a bad person. I just think that you are so far removed from this because of the programming you've had to not care about what's happening, or because of your own prejudice, that it doesn't interest me to continue a friendship with people like that. I think that I'm at this point in my life and in my age and the experiences that I've had, I need a refined individual, or at least an individual who's working on being a refined individual, to also add quality and perspective into my life. And if you're incapable of doing that because you don't want to talk about things that are touchy or sensitive, or just maybe it's too graphic or this or that, I don't care about these filters you want to put on. I don't care. And I think that that's why, for the most part, I don't really have friends in the way that I used to. I don't really have friends where I can just call up and be like, hey, let's go out and do this and this and that, because I don't feel connected to that want or need to do those things. I'm more about I want to connect with people. I want to find my tribe of pro-humanitarian people who are just willing to take action and to do things and have dialogue and to just exist in this world with the willingness to make a change in some capacity. That's where I'm at. And if people are not at that place, then that's why I do this podcast, to connect with people who we could have that dialogue with, who we could connect with, who we can maybe make a shift in our own right to add to the overall shift and greater change for humanity. And that all starts with just having dialogue. So I know this was a little bit of a funny episode in a way, because we just kind of plopped up a little video, but this is something that I want to do more on the podcast.
Yeah, of course.
Where we're able to look at things and talk about them, react to them, maybe show people who are not necessarily watching, but now because they're watching us or listening to us, that they're like, okay, you know what? I'm listening through their perspective, and now maybe I have an interest in what's going on, and I can go look up these things myself and whatever. But this was the first video of us doing it. And again, we're just trying to give a little bit at a time. We're not trying to overwhelm anybody watching or listening and whoa, this just went so far from what I thought this was going to be. This is how it's going to start being. We're just going to introduce it in a little bit of a moderate way.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Slow and steady, but also this shit's happening in real time. So I'm just trying to do it in a way that feels like it's an easy transition for those who are having a hard time, maybe. But I know that was a long-winded episode, but I want to say to everyone who's still continuing to listen, support, watch, share, that without anyone, again, showing us that there was an interest or a care, I would still be doing this. And for those who are doing it, you were empowering people to chat and to have dialogue and to not be afraid. So I think anybody, family, friends, acquaintances, anybody listening throughout the world, much love to you. Take that hit and carry on.
Bye.
Bye.